Welcome to the slideshow for Warren and Monica's trip to Rome in 2023. We started this in Rome, spent 6 days in Rome, and then get on a cruise ship, the Celebrity Constellation. This is where we went: Toulon, Malacora, Cartagena, Malaga, and then Gibraltar. Our home base was an Airbnb just north of the Colosseum. There's our Airbnb. Nice little place. It worked out great for the week. It's centrally located. Everything was very close. Very comfortable accommodations. 95 steps from street level up to the Airbnb. But it did have nice little Juliet balconies, which we really enjoyed, so we could open those up. The first thing we did was take a food tour. We got to try some actual Italian pizza, which is just flat bread with very simple ingredients. They do have more American-style pizza available in most of the restaurants in Rome. We also found out how the water fountains work. Any of the water fountains that have a barcode on them are safe to drink out of. While we were there, of course, and we're in Rome, we had to come across some ruins. This was the Jewish ghetto, which was a ghetto from 1555 till 1870. The Great Synagogue of Rome was built in the 1870s, immediately after the Jewish people were freed. In 1986, Pope John Paul II was the first pope to visit the Jewish sector in 1,000 years. We also toured the Colosseum. It was very nice. We had a night tour, so it wasn't very crowded. We could see where the gladiators prepared for their combat. We toured this real maze under the Colosseum, under the floor of the Colosseum. The actual floor where the combat happened was a wooden deck covered in sand, and underneath here there's this maze where the animals and the gladiators and the prisoners and whoever else was going to be today's entertainment was housed, and how they moved around the Colosseum. It's a quite elaborate setup. The gladiators wore some armor, they had weapons, and their helmets were really important. The helmets were how the crowd knew who their champion was. The Colosseum is very large. It's as large as any modern arena. It seats about 50,000 people. Some estimates say that with the sort of the poor people seating up around the top, they could probably fit close to 80,000 inside the Colosseum. Had a nice Italian dinner with where you do the chef special. You let them pick your appetizers, your pasta course, your protein course, and then your dessert. Had a fantastic meal. I would definitely recommend trying that. It was really good. They even took us back into the kitchen to pick out which fish they were going to prepare for us. This is the Theater of Marcella, which was the original amphitheater in Rome, about 100 years older than the more well-known Colosseum. This is Trevi Fountain, built in the 1800s. It's a beautiful display. This is the cell where both Paul and Peter were imprisoned while they were waiting their execution. We also saw a number of beautiful, beautiful churches. These are not famous cathedrals. These are just churches in Rome that Monica and I would go into to get out of the weather, or just to sit down for a minute. And without exception, these were just absolutely beautiful cathedrals. We also toured a number of archaeological digs. These ruins were fascinating. I'm still not convinced of the official story of where all the dirt came from. This stuff is buried under 50 to 100 feet of dirt. You can sort of get a sense of how deep these things are dug. At the top of the hill is the Victor Emmanuel II monument. It's to honor the first king of a unified Italy. Italy became unified on 17 March 1861. We toured the Via Alexandria excavation, as well as the Temple of Peace near Via Cavour. And then we get to the famous Parthenon, another fascinating building in Rome. The scale is just, you have to kind of see it to believe it. All of these large Roman buildings are like that. Photos just don't do them justice. They're breathtaking in scale. And this still has the largest unsupported concrete dome in the world at about 150 feet across. We also visited a cat sanctuary. Monica got to get some cat time in while we were in a foreign city. We stopped by a McDonald's, sort of superficially like an American McDonald's, but not really. They have much better cappuccino. Then we visited the Vatican Museum and the Sistine Chapel. This was a fascinating walk through a really impressive museum.
To make a present to John Paul II, because in the 1990 John Paul II tried to stop, remember the war in the center of Europe, the Balkan War, ex-Yugoslavia, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia-Herzegovina. And Orlando Pomodoro, with the symbol of St. Peter, explained to everybody how important is the peace of our life. Every time.
The Vatican pieces are sort of similar to everything else in Rome. You almost have to see it in person to really appreciate it. The scale of some of the artwork is just astounding. These are enormous tapestries. There are enormous paintings. It's just an overwhelming experience seeing all this, which I suppose is kind of the plan. The sculptures are simply amazing. The tour guide was just telling endless stories of the Vatican being looted by just about every army that went through Europe at one point or another, and then the efforts that the Vatican took to get their property back. And there's so much of it. We walked for hours going through this museum, and at a walking pace, not even hanging around to really admire some of these things. Finally, we're at the Sistine Chapel. The Sistine Chapel absolutely lived up to its reputation. It really is a fascinating just collection of art. Michelangelo was not really a noted painter when he was selected to paint this Sistine Chapel. He only painted 48 paintings in his life that we know of, and 40 of them are in the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo had numerous disagreements with the bishop. He would put his scaffolding up and he stood to paint. He didn't lay down on his back even though he was painting a ceiling. And the scaffolding obscured his artwork, so the bishops were always wanted to see it and they were pestering him. So Michelangelo painted these bishops' faces on the demons in his paintings. week in Rome was over, so it was time to board the ship. Monica had a minor issue. She was pickpocketed in Rome on the subway, and they got her passport, so Monica got to spend an extra day in Rome and then fly to Spain to catch up with the ship. This is her hotel for the evening. Oh, big surprise, there's a lot of Roman ruins in Cartagena. This is a scaled down amphitheater, not as big as the big Colosseum. Cartagena and Malaga are two of the nicest cities I've visited in years. So you can see these streets are just clean, everything's clean. They have a huge downtown area there's no traffic, it's just for pedestrians. This is Malaga. Malaga was also just a beautiful, very walkable city. They had a spectacular park in the middle of the city here. And then we visited another more Roman ruins, another amphitheater, and another Roman fort that had been converted into a Moorish fort, and then another Christian fort. Everyone who lived there left their mark on the place. There's a view of the harbor from the top walls. This is the Alcazab of Malaga. It was originally built as a church, and then has been repurposed and added on to many times. It was a private residence for a little bit, then the governor of this province took it over and lived with his family, and it was also a government building with offices and things. It's a fairly sprawling complex. Then we walked up the hill, way up the hill, several thousand feet in elevation, to an old fort that was up there. The fort was a bit of a disappointment. The last people that occupied the fort were the French, and when they left, they dynamited the whole thing. So they just left the outer walls. The cave system inside the Rock of Gibraltar is just astounding in scope. It sort of rivals Carlsbad Caverns. It's much, much larger than Luray. You can see there's a theater-style seating inside there. These monkeys are the Barbary macaques. They're not aggressive, they're kind of inquisitive. They have been known to steal jewelry and to sort of grab at shiny things. But other than that, they're fairly tame. Here's the most famous rock in the world. I'm not even sure what the second most famous rock in the world is. Monica celebrated her birthday on board. That was lovely. we just had a fantastic time on board. We did the food tour where we spent 3 hours making lunch for ourselves. And had crab balls, fish, and then a creme brulee for dessert. It was really a good time, a fun bunch of people. There's Monica's friends she met in the puzzle room. They went through probably a dozen jigsaw puzzles during the week. Monica relaxing on board after she was unable to go snorkeling in the Bahamas. I was able to get in some scuba diving, did a really nice wreck dive on the Twin Sisters wreck right off the coast of Nassau.